Hey there, my name is Josh Garrick, and today we're going to be going over some more topics in Computer Science 1371. Specifically, we're going to start talking about iteration. This is really just different kinds of loops that you can use to accomplish different things in MATLAB. For and while loops, really. Um, so, just to give a little background, for loops are when you know the amount of times you want to loop through a certain amount of code, and while loops are when you're not so sure. So that's the biggest difference between the two. But the best place to always start is with the ABCs of iteration. So let's go through those two problems that demonstrate a good example of a for and a while loop, relatively simple example, and really just give you some information on how they work. So as it shows up in the homework file that we're given, ABCs of iteration, directions is just like every other week. Write the code to satisfy the following directions for each part. Store your answer in the variable that is specified. So our two inputs are vec, which is a vector of numbers, and num, an integer greater than 1. The first question is for dealing with for loops. Fix the following loop so that A is the vector vec in reverse order. Replace every question mark with necessary code. You must utilize the for loop to receive credit. So it was before I actually went through and changed the code. It was just the outline of what a for loop might look like, but going into it again, if vec is 1, 2, 3, 4, a vector 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if vec is a vector 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then A should look like this after each iteration. So it's going to start at 1, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So looking at the actual code, we want to start out with a starting variable. So A is going to be our empty vector. That's what we're going to loop through. Well, what our values are going to be put into as we loop through the code. So as I said, for loops are going to go through a certain amount of times that you know. So we're going to go for ind, which is just a variable we made up, equals 1 to length of vec. So it's going to go through the length of vec, which is that vector of 1 to 5. Ind are the indices of the vec, and that's what it's going to loop through. Then we have a equals vec of ind, comma a, and that's putting the next element from vec before everything in A, and we're going to end it. So again, looking at this is just taking vec ind, so you're going to go through and find the first value, and then you're going to put, that's going to be A. You're going to go again, find the next value and put that before A. Go again, find the next value, put that before what you just found A, find the next value again until you go through every position. So that's just going to take each position and put it before what A was before. Essentially, it's a loop that reverses the vector. Though there are easier ways to do this, iteration is just another way to accomplish this goal. Okay, so looking at the next question, number 2 is dealing with while loops. So it says, use the following while loop to count the number of perfect squares between 1 and num inclusive. Store your answer in the variable b. Replace every question mark with the necessary code. You must utilize this while loop to receive any credit. So with this, we need another initializing variable. So we put I equals 1. B equals 0 is our counting variable. So we need both of those to really run through the while loop. We need somewhere to start, and we need something that keeps the while loop going. So for our while loop, it's going to be while I is, which is our starting variable. We're going to start from 1. While I is less than or equal to num, which is our unknown number. It's an integer greater than 1. So while that is less than or equal to num. Going into the code some more. We're going to put an if statement within our while loop, which is going to keep going as long as I is less than or equal to num. So if mod of square root of I, comma 1 equals 0. So this if statement is checking to see if the square root of I, which is our I was our starting variable. So if the square root of I is an integer, then we're going to go with our counting variable, which was b, and b equals b plus 1. So every time we're going to increase that. So increment the counting if the integer is found. So once again, it's going to check to make sure that I is a number, and if it is, we're going to count again. So then we're going to end that if statement, and I equals I plus 1, which was again our starting number, is going to keep it going as well. It's going to move to the next index position and try that while loop again, as well as try that if loop if the while loop is true still. And if the if loop is true, if the if statement is true, they're both going to keep going. So then we're going to go through both of those until we get all of the numbers from I to num. Okay, so that's just really the basics of that. And another example we have is this fib space. It's actually creating a Fibonacci sequence of numbers from 0 to whatever number that we're given. So looking at this code, we have function output is sequence equals fib space of num. Our starting variable is 0, and our counting variable, which is the first two numbers of the Fibonacci sequence, are 0 and 1. So while initial is less than or equal to the number we're given, initial is going to equal the last number of vec plus vec of n minus 1. So the next to last number in vec, and then it's going to take that initial and put that after vec. So vec equals vec initial, and it's going to loop through every time until we get to our number. So then sequence, which is our output, is simply going to equal vec of 1 to n minus 1, so we don't get that last number, and you're going to get your Fibonacci sequence up to your number. So it's just another practical example of how to use a while loop rather than a for loop this time, but a while loop and iteration in MATLAB. I hope that helps a little bit, and thanks.